Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Rangers Reviews morning briefing on Friday, the 25th of, March, Johnny? It's March. We're halfway through the international break. We're still here. We still have talking points. Just me and you today, Johnny. How are you doing?
Good, mate. Good. Yes, we'll miss Derek, but he's enjoying a well-earned day off in the sunshine. So I'm sure he'll be out gallivanting around northern England somewhere.
He'll undoubtedly find some sort of football game to go to in northern England, won't he? That
Yeah.
if Derek isn't working, yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. We'll just remind you folks right at the start to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Hit the notification bell so you never miss when we go live. And remember as well, you can subscribe at the website, rangersreview.co.uk. If you enjoy our podcast every morning, it supports what we do here every day, bringing you hopefully decent quality Rangers chat every morning, Johnny, me and you and Derek, as well as some top quality writing over on the website. Right, let's get right into it. Alfredo Morelos looks to be injured, Johnny. That's a worry. Over to you.
Yeah, that's a major worry. A major worry. So let's first of all, let's get things into context. It's a report from Colombia that has been Google translated. So I think what was the phrase used, Joshua, that's been bandied about? It's like a muscle overload. What is it? A muscle overload. So that could be really not serious. Someone's basically, you could just have a very slight muscle strain, nothing to worry about, or it could be something more concerning. It depends on what that actually means. It's not a term that gets bandied about in Scotland. Muscle overload very much. So I think the first thing is let's wait and see what we can glean from the club. Let's see what we can glean from the days ahead in terms of the Colombian media as to where Alfredo Morelos is. But there's no doubt, if there's one player Rangers really want, especially for this Europa League run, it's Alfredo Morelos. Let's not beat around the bush on that. Yeah. It's absolutely imperative he's there. So, yeah, it's not the best news you would want coming out of an international break, that's for sure.
No, absolutely. And I think there might be a bit of feedback coming from your mic, Johnny. Is that right? I think there might be a wee bit of feedback coming. I've just had a comment from Sonny Boy saying echoes. Oh, that might be it just now. Gone. Technical issues over. That's fine. No worries. Good to go. Yeah, and obviously we've seen Morelos go off. I think 2 games in a row, Johnny. I think Dundee away and Red Star Belgrade away with ice strapped on his thigh or calf, one of the two. And listen, he's played a lot of games, and maybe it is just the case. Hopefully, it's a case of they've caught it maybe just before it turns into a serious issue. Do you think there's a little bit of a worrying trend? And obviously, this is completely hypothetical, but you see with Scott Arfield, everyone was saying after that St Johnstone game, look, this guy looks knackered. Van Bronckhorst didn't make substitutions, and he got injured. Hopefully not. And now Morelos maybe looks to have a slight muscle. Even if this, Johnny, isn't a serious injury, there's no denying that Morelos has probably maybe played a little bit too much football, I think, in everyone's opinion, and did look leggy at the end of some games, certainly in my opinion.
Sorry, I've still got this infernal cough from a couple of weeks back. Yeah, he has played a lot of football under GVB, hasn't he? Let's not be around the bush on that. I would like to have seen Kemar Roof introduced a little bit more often. He's clearly a player who's looked quite sharp in the last couple of games when he's come on. We're not in a position where you can change what's happened, though. Time is done. We're not Marty McFly. We can't go back and alter history. So, given that there's now, our next game is in a week on Sunday.
Yeah.
So there's still 9 days to go, which gives Morelos a decent amount of time to get back and get fit and certainly ensure that he's getting there. And you just have to hope that he gets the right care when he's away with Colombia. And given the quality of Rangers' medical department, the amount of facilities that Rangers have behind the scenes, that when he gets back here, if he's still got an issue, it'll be looked after. But I do think there is a growing issue around the club of ensuring that the amount of minutes are managed.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a difficult balance for Giovanni Van Bronckhorst because he's fighting on so many fronts. And each one is is extremely important.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt it's going to be a potential issue. I mean, what's your take on that?
Well, I think something that I think we quite often forget, Johnny, is this isn't Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's squad, and that's something that's banded around the football quite a lot. But it's not, and this is a team that's been created by Steven Gerrard, and Van Bronckhorst has inherited, and I think quite successfully managed to mould into a different style of football mid-season. I was speaking to someone at the club recently about how he'd done that so quickly, and especially in that time over Christmas, and he was just giving me some insight into that, which was really interesting. And certainly there was a lot of work that went on behind the scenes into getting these players into a different kind of tactical setup.
Yeah.
But I think what you do see as well within that is the squad players that Gerrard maybe signed, or maybe there's a couple of players that he had a certain relationship with. You don't know how it works. Van Bronckhorst obviously doesn't have the depth of squad of his players whatsoever. He's only signed, how many players did he sign in January? 3, 4. You don't know, I guess, how much input comes from the manager and how much input is already put in place by the sporting director these days in football. So I think, although you look at the games like St Johnstone, the 1-0, where it was just, it was kind of so obvious that so many players were so tired, but Van Bronckhorst made a big decision and he got it right. You look at when he brought off Morelos at home to Aberdeen, big decision, he got it right. Tactical decisions in the Europa League. So I think he's not someone that's going to be swayed by public opinion or kind of make an easy decision like a substitution on the 79th minute that might be inconsequential but might get the support off his back, so to speak. But as I say, I think that's an important point. Look, this isn't his squad. It's a good squad, but it's a squad at the end of a cycle. It isn't his squad, and I think in the summer you'll see, particularly in a couple of key areas, if he can get in players that are more suited to what he wants to do. Because that's what I think every manager is like now for me, Johnny, certainly. So just I think important to mention on that. We'll go on to another international player that was I think it was an encouraging watch for everyone watching Aaron Ramsey last night. Wales win over Austria. I caught bits of it apart from Gareth Bale's free kick, which was just ridiculous.
That is absolutely insane, that free kick. I saw the free kick initially from a different angle and thought, it's a decent strike.
Mm-hmm.
But when you see it from the angle, I've put it up on Twitter in the last 5 or 6 minutes, which is right underneath the ball. Yeah. It's incredible. It is literally postage stamp. There's no keeper in the world that could ever save that. It's absolutely insane free kick by Gareth Bale, who, by the way, I should say, is available on a free transfer in the summer. And I hear that Scotland has some quite nice golf courses.
Yes, can't say I've played them, but I've heard that as well. Lots of comments coming in to say, Johnny, did Ramsey seem to be holding his leg after 90 minutes? I think probably that's most likely cramp, given he's not played a lot of 90 minutes. And he looked pretty sharp to me. The question then, which RFC 56 has just asked, and I was going to ask coincidentally, which is handy, does he start in the Old Firm game?
Ramsey?
Yeah.
Yes. No, yeah. I think so, mate. I actually now, I'm coming to the belief that the best Rangers midfield is Jack, Lundstrom and Ramsey. And that's where we're going to start going. I think Aribo is going to end up on the right-hand side of midfield. And that'll allow the space for Tav to push into. And Aribo will be essentially playing kind of the position he was playing under Gerrard.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe Van Bronckhorst will go for a completely lopsided, system and push him right across into the centre and just allow to have the freedom of that right-hand side with Aribo getting out there to link up with him.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the midfield three, I don't know what you think. You kind of had a sort of quizzical look on your face there when I said that.
No. I mean, I think we've obviously been doing some work ahead of the Old Firm next week, and two of the pieces that are going to be on the website. One looks at the B team game, and Johnny, good B teams, as we hear all the time, mirror what has happened at the first team level. So I found it was really interesting going to that game, almost as a tactical prelude of how do the tactics of the first team match up at the the B team level, because I guess it's quite transmissive. And if you also went and looked at the Bodo Glimt game, in which they beat Celtic obviously 5-1 in aggregate, and I do think that the way to counteract them is you've got to be high and aggressive, but you've got to be compact, which Rangers obviously weren't. Rangers marked man for man instead of marked around the ball, which is why you have those rotations looking 10 times better than, or I'm sure they were always going to be good, but making them look all the better. And I think probably in those games you do need. I think industrious is the wrong words, but you probably need a midfield that goes and gives the team above a platform, which obviously in the reverse game you didn't have whatsoever. And I think Van Bronckhorst has started to move towards that with Jack and Lundstrom, who gives them a nice base. The reason I think Ramsey and Aribo are your other two players, as well as Morelos and Kent, undoubtedly, in that kind of front six, if you will. I think depending on the game, sometimes Ramsey coming off the right will just give him freedom without a marker, as you've seen in the first game against Dundee, the cup game. Sometimes in a different game, perhaps you want Aribo out there to, go one-on-one a little bit more and ice. I think it was the 2-0 Old Firm Cup game last season where Aribo drifted out to that side a lot. The second goal was deflected in by Laxalt, and that was all through Aribo. I think the first goal as well came down that side as well. So I do think you need that. And also, if it had worked out differently with Rangers signing a right winger in the summer, I think there'd have been more of a platform to go for a real industrious midfield, but then really keep the wingers high and get the fullbacks involved. But now, because it's kind of went to, as you say, this asymmetrical or lopsided look, maybe it does make sense moving Aribo out there. The thing is, Aribo he's just looked pretty tired for me ever since AFCON. He looks like he's played just so much football. And that's a slight concern going into the final few weeks of the season, because that's when you need your big players to come good. And in the good run that Rangers had, when was it? December. Joe Aribo was the best player for me. It was absolutely unstoppable in the middle of the pitch. So I wouldn't say no to that midfield, but I think the encouraging thing for me is with Ramsey, Johnny, that he looks sharp. If he goes and gets another 90 minutes under his belt for Wales, and he comes in and has 2 final really strong months, no one will remember the 6 weeks in which he wasn't playing, will they?
No. I think this is the weird thing about Ramsey, is most of the time that when Rangers players go away on international break, you kind of almost don't want them to play. You kind of want them to just come back and be completely fresh and have been rested almost. But in this situation with Aaron Ramsey, it's absolutely brilliant to see him get the 90 minutes. And you actually probably hope that he plays the 90 minutes in their friendly game that's upcoming as well.
Yeah.
Because he just needs topped up at this stage. Listen, I'm not a sports scientist. There may be a case for him actually to stay out the next game. I don't know. Yeah. They'll know best. But in terms of getting minutes under his belt, it is certainly no bad thing for Rangers that he's had that 90 minutes and potentially got more game time in the next game. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. John Dooley raises a good point. You've spoken about the Bale free kick, Johnny. It's time to speak about the Alex Lowry free kick. Yeah. I mean, he just does it so effortlessly, doesn't he? I mean, it's so impressive. 2 more goals. I think the second one was maybe from the penalty spot. I watched him obviously for the B team last week. He just looks too good for that level. Do you think you start to bring him in more and more to the first team picture over these next 2 months, Johnny, or is it not the right time perhaps to bring a young player in?
It's a difficult one. We talked about this we touched on it yesterday. The issue really is that the players that are ahead of him in the side are terrific players. Mm-hmm. You're going to drop Joe Aribo, are you going to drop Aaron Ramsey to play the young lad? I think that's a big ask. I've just posted the video, by the way. If anyone's not seen it, I've just posted the free kick in the comments. My goodness, it's a cracker. Mm-hmm. But what I would say, again, to reiterate from yesterday, is I think the right manager is in place if you're going to introduce him to the first team. And I think it's a must that he is a first team player next season and he is properly introduced, because he is clearly a really, really exciting talent. And the thing that really excites me, Joshua, is all throughout my lifetime, and I'm 40, I'm an old bugger now, we haven't had really many technical talents in Scotland. I think back over the 40 years I've been kicking around, and especially in the last 25, there's just not been a lot that you can hang your hat on and say, there's a guy that can really get you up off your feet. There's a guy that can glide with the ball, that can play a clever through ball, that can do something off the cuff and creative. There's just not been an awful lot of those guys. And that is what Alex Lowry is. It's very un-Scottish. Yeah. And I've got to be honest, and I think the SFA deserve a little bit of credit for this. They got their house in order when they put Mark Votta in. And slowly but surely, there is whatever's happened and whoever gets credit for it 10 years ago, it's now starting to bear fruit, and you're seeing more and more of these players come through that have technical gifts. Billy Gilmore's another example. The lad Ben Doak at Celtic is clearly a very talented lad and looks like he's on his way to Liverpool at 16. You've got players at Bayern Munich. You've got players who are being touted for big clubs. I think there is a generation of young guys who are a different kind of player coming out of Scotland now. Traditionally, we've always been good at producing kind of defensive midfield players, guys who can pass the ball, maybe sideways as opposed to forwards, defenders who can brilliantly siege defend their box. But Alex Lowry is part of a new generation that can do more than that.
Yeah,
that is very, very exciting to see for not just Rangers but for the national team too. Yeah. And Rangers have been at the absolute tip of the spear on this. In terms of, I think some of the talented young players that are coming through, and Lowry's another example of that.
Let's discuss another talented player. It leads me on nicely. Not Alex Lowry, but Stephen Kelly. We have a big interview with him. Derek spoke to him for the Rangers Review. I'll post it in the comments, and you can go and read that over on the site. Some interesting comments about how his loan's going, the frustration of the first 6 months. He speaks about Alex Lowry himself. The quote is "flashes of brilliance," which is in the headline. So some good quotes from Kelly, Johnny, in there, and also it seems that the loan's been good for him. Obviously, I think for the first 6 months there was always the Willie won't he break in. He had some involvement in pre-season. I don't know if now he comes back and finally gets a little bit of a chance at Rangers, but it still seems like that door's open somewhat to me. What about you?
I've always liked Stephen Kelly. He's a very tidy player, uses the ball well. I think positionally he's very smart. And one of the things I think is quite interesting about him is that he doesn't really see himself as that kind of Stephen Davis clone. He's more of an attack-minded player, but he's not really had the chance to do that at Rangers. He's been, when he's played, he's been more deep-lying creator. Mm-hmm. So it was good to see him score a terrific goal, I think, for Salford last week.
Yeah.
And this interview that Derek's done with him is full of insight into his frustrations in terms of thinking that he'd sort of kind of broke through a little bit towards the end of last season and the start of this one, and then not really getting an opportunity. So going out to get that football and to prove that he can dominate at that level. And he certainly had a good experience when he was on loan at Ross County. I know John Hughes raves about him from what he produced when he was up there in the Highlands. So Rangers are monitoring him. They're keeping an eye on him. Billy Kirkwood, who's the loans manager, is watching every game, has been down to see him, and that will continue. And it'll be a question at the end of the season, I think, for Gio, whether or not he wants to bring in Kelly as a replacement for anyone who leaves, or if he wants to go out and actually purchase someone. But again, Dutch managers always known for bringing through kids. And I, for one, think at the end of the season, Stephen Kelly should be given an opportunity. Mm-hmm. We'll find out whether or not he's good enough, and that'll be a judgment call for the manager. But I've always been impressed with the way he appears to be able to dictate tempo, and that's an important aspect of being a Rangers midfield player. Mm-hmm. You won't improve, you won't get to Rangers level unless you're given an opportunity to show what you can do. Some players exponentially improve around better players, and he might be one that's able to do that. But these guys who are at Rangers will know better than us, because they're all over every aspect of his game. He makes that clear in the interview that Derek's done with him.
Yeah.
But as a guy who loves to see young players come through, and I think most fans, everyone in the comments will feel the same. You love to see guys who know what the club's about, who've been at the club since they were kids, break through into that team. If we all want to see that, don't we? At the end of the day, at any club. Yeah. So that would be a major success if that was able to happen, I think.
Absolutely, and the last piece we've got on the site as well, which is just in the comments, is a scouting piece on a couple of goalkeepers in the Scottish Premiership. Using our partnership with StatsBomb, Johnny, we can go and look at exactly how good they are as shot stoppers, how many goals they've saved above average, compare that to McGregor. So a real detailed look at that, which and I'd encourage you to go and look at. And remember as well, folks, if you enjoy the podcast, do go and subscribe to the website. It allows us and enables us to do this every morning. You can also get access to all your Rangers news, analysis, features, interviews, opinions, everything you can think of every single day. We'll have coverage across the weekend of the Legends game, which I believe you're going to be at, Johnny.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I won't be there, but you will be. And then next week we'll be building up to one of the biggest games in a long time, one of the biggest Old Firms in a long time, which of course we'll be at as well and have all your coverage for. So remember to subscribe on YouTube, folks. Subscribe as well on the website. If you're going along to the game at Ibrox this weekend, do enjoy it, and we will speak